Hello, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Laura, and this is the Parentrepreneurs Club podcast, a fortnightly show to help you navigate the demands of being both a parent and a business owner. We will share lots of practical ideas, hints and tips, and our own and others' experiences of juggling work, family, health and finances. Above all, we want to help you find your purpose, define your identity, and banish any confidence gremlins that might be holding you back from the life you dream of. No matter whether you have children or not, there will be something here for you. Let's get started.
Right, well, thank you very much for joining me today, Penelope. Really appreciate you taking the time out to have this chat. So, first of all, if you just want to introduce yourself and what you do and tell our listeners a bit about you.
Thank you, and it's lovely to be here. So I blend recruitment and well-being together. So I class myself as creating happy, healthy and highly productive teams through recruitment and sustainable well-being.
Yeah, lovely. I absolutely love that. And I know we've had a lot of conversations about your kind of core drivers, and how do you think those have kind of shaped your career?
It's completely shaped my career from understanding, burnout was such a big factor of my life. I've been in recruitment for 25 years. So very high pressure, very stressful, and having burnt out because of hiding who I actually was. I burnt out and I re-burnt out until I lived in perpetual burnout. And it was only when I started honouring myself and putting my values into place did things start shifting for me. And it's become a passion of mine to help companies to just embrace their own staff, and likewise for staff coming into the industry, whatever age, whether they're changing jobs or coming straight out of college, to be able to just be who they are born to be without any fear of not fitting in.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem that we're facing, is this concept of burnout these days. Not just in corporate industries, but also, from a personal level as well. Do you find that we're kind of juggling so many different plates today, which perhaps wasn't a thing before?
Yeah, I used to joke that I always wore different hats, and as a working mum, you're a wife and mother one minute, you're a businesswoman the next, I'd go from jumping in muddy puddles to suddenly sitting in a boardroom. It was so far extremes, but because you're constantly putting everybody else first, you lose sight of who you actually are. And it's that causes the burnout, because you're juggling so much, you don't hear your inner voice screaming at you saying, stop, you've had enough, because you're just caught in that juggling moment of spinning too many plates.
Yeah, I think, I like what you said there, is you are kind of caught in that trap of you don't necessarily identify it until it is too late. And I think, society puts so many pressures and expectations on, parents as well, that for me, certainly, that shift of moving from a corporate career to having a portfolio career helped with that, balancing act. But do you find that the same in what you're doing now?
Yeah, I do. And I think that portfolio career is great for working women, but it doesn't suit everybody. And it was accepting the fact that, probably the same as you, Laura, I'm very ambitious. I love working, but there's almost that mummy guilt because you love being in work that also has that contributing factor. And so whether you're doing portfolio working or hybrid working or remote working or out of the office for 10, 12 hours a day, that mummy guilt will play. So that's where the overcompensation comes from, is that, oh, I need to be there for them when they've got me. And then I couldn't, in the height of my burnout, I couldn't tell you any time where I'd had time just for me to sit and do nothing. And now I spin it completely. I make sure that that's a priority.
Yeah. I think, you touched on guilt there, and we experience guilt in so many different ways, from the mum guilt to the guilt of not being active or, perceived as being involved within an organisation. And I think particularly if you're working part-time, that can be even more of an issue.
Yes, indeed. And funny enough, my career started part-time because my husband's career was up there. So I started part-time in print, so very male dominated. And there was almost this tut as you walk out the door because you were going to pick the kids up from school. And as I progressed into full-time in that industry, that's where a lot of my poor habits came in, because I'd sort of hide it and wouldn't talk about the kids. I wouldn't, I'd go down the pub with them after work because that was the man thing to do. It was a very masculine environment, but it taught me very, very bad habits of the way I need to put my career forward is forget about the family at home. And then when you get home, be all for them and forget work. But yeah, it's like you're living in a divide, isn't it?
It is. And, I struggle with, we have come a long way in society from there, but I still don't think we're there yet. I think we still have a long way to go.
We do. And I think it's organisations like the work you do, Laura, particularly the work I'm doing. It's more and more organisations realising that we are people and we are the heart and soul of the business, wherever we are, and embracing that, because you're building the well-being in, I'm building the well-being in. I think it's shifting, but we have a huge mountain to climb yet.
Yeah. And so I want to ask you a question here is, how do you think our approaches would change if we took away that concept of normal?
And I love that question. If we took away the normal, that you have to be at your desk at 9 and you have to stay till 5 and you have to produce this amount of work and you're not allowed to show emotion, you're just a robot at your desk, that's perceived as normal. And you take that away, and actually what I found in the work that I do is you become vulnerable. And when you allow that vulnerability in, I'm not talking about sobbing in front of your team or, yes, my team know that when I'm hurting, I'm likely to tell them that I'm not in a good place and I need to have a breather. But it allows you to actually do more. So you're more productive, you're more, the work that I produced in short paces of time would take my whole 8 hours of sitting at a desk pretending to be somebody I wasn't. And I think if you could take away that concept of normal and just allow everybody to be, as in human being, we would create a huge impact in the workplace. And so my normal, take it away, but I am very strange. I sit and meditate at my desk. I will take myself off for walks when I need to. I will read at odd times because, I need to recharge my energy, but I actually produce more work because of that. And so that's my normal, but it's not everybody's normal. So if we take it away, it's just...
I absolutely love that. And I think, this is where we need to have that curiosity of what is normal for different people, because everyone's normal will be different. And I think certainly from the work you do, you probably feed this into inclusion and diversity. It's no longer just a tick box exercise. So it has to be part of, what does normal look like to you? And I love the fact that you said about, the meditation in there. Because it is that moment of just taking a step back and recognizing where your triggers might be.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, we've spoken before. One of the things that I bring into the workplace is, I don't sit there for hours like a Zen Buddha on a cushion. It's HeartMath. And it's something so simple, or it's Aroma Freedom, because again, that's a simple technique. I've sat in meetings where, because I use aromatherapy in the work that I do, and I've sat in meetings where my team have hands over their eyes because they've got eye strain, and they're sitting there with frankincense over their eyes while I'm giving them a meeting. It's the bizarrest, strangest thing. But because it's open, because it's, how my team, I've allowed my team to be themselves. If they need a moment themselves, if they need a moment of, just sitting with some oils burning in a burner or a bit of HeartMath, then it's allowed. It's not
Yeah.
taboo.
The HeartMath, I have touched on it, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up, because can you just kind of explain to the listeners just a little bit about what HeartMath is?
So HeartMath is bringing coherence into your heart. So what happens when you get stressed is you produce a lot of cortisol. And if you continue that, cortisol then kills off all the other hormones. So you're going completely the other way. And what HeartMath does is it just regulates it brings you back into your heart space. And when you're thinking with your heart and bringing yourself into that, it keeps all your hormones balanced. So it reduces the stress and the anxiety. And you can do it minute by minute, and you can weave it into any kind of practice that you do. So I touched on aroma freedom. I'm an aroma freedom practitioner, so I use HeartMath within it. And so I just sort of integrate the two together, and that's the beauty of HeartMath. So there's a lovely technique that I use for difficult conversations, and you literally start breathing through your heart, and you just imagine where your heart is, and you just slow your breathing down and equal breaths in and out, and just take a moment, and that is all it is. But then you imagine somewhere that you're happy and somewhere that you're really content, and you just allow those feelings to come in, and you're breathing them in and you're breathing those feelings out. So when you step into that meeting, you're completely in that different zone of, you know, and what it tends to do is switch on your intuition, which then can bring in more of the productivity, and, you know, because you're aware more of what's going on, because you're completely in a coherent state. And it takes a lot of practice, but I do it religiously now. Before I start a day, at the end of the day, I wind my day down, almost like closing that door, and I will pick on it throughout the day, because it doesn't look like you're meditating, you know, which brings me back to that conversation of normal, you know, a few breathing techniques nobody needs to know. So you could do it at a bus stop, you could do it on a busy train, you know, anytime you're feeling anxious. It's just a practice of getting coherent in your heart, and the more you do it, the more your heart starts to regulate, and you'll understand, you can feel when things are wrong and when they're not quite comfortable.
Yeah, it is so powerful. From my understanding as well, it's that your heart actually gives off kind of electrical pulses. So it's actually how that then feeds to other people as well. So I know it is explained to me as in, if you walk into a room sometimes and you can feel that there's an atmosphere, and you're actually picking up on someone's heart pulses.
Yes. Yeah, it's your electronic magnetic field around you, and there is actual scientific studies that's going on that your brain isn't the thing that functions; it's your heart. Your heart is the one where all the feelings and everything comes from. Your brain is just acting on your heart.
Yeah.
So when I do any coaching with anybody on HeartMath, you know, it could be something that's they're just not sure where they're going, and so I will work with them to just understand that, you know, that voice in your heart rather than the voice in your head, because leading with your heart, there's that phrase, isn't it? You lead with your heart, not with your head, or lead with your head, not with your heart, the other way around. And it's so true. It's because when you're leading from here, you're leading from love, you know, whereas when you're leading from your head, you're in that, you know, thinking, and fight or flight, doesn't matter. It's just, I've got to go. And it also, it generates, when you're not in your HeartMath space, you've got your brain will completely be in that fight or flight space. When you're in HeartMath, it's all around your pineal gland, and that is where you're thinking. So that's why the intuition comes through as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. That's really insightful as well. So I'll move on a little bit now. If you could go back and give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be?
It would be put myself first. And that's been the hardest lesson for me throughout my career. You know, it took a major crash for me to realize that I needed to put myself first. And it came a lot from upbringing as well. I grew up in a very military family that was very domineering, and a violent mum. And from that point, you know, I had to please everybody. and we live in a people-pleasing society, and that's where a lot of my issues coming through into my career sort of stemmed in, because I was constantly pleasing people. So as an 18-year-old, I would say it's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to listen to what you want, and if you want to say no, say no.
Yeah. I know we've talked before about your past and what led you to that, and I think what would you kind of say is the most important lesson you've learned over that time?
So most important lesson for me was just really honoring myself. When I got to the height of my burnout, and I still didn't listen, and then I had breast cancer and I still didn't listen. I worked all the way through cancer because I didn't want to upset my family. It was ridiculous. I didn't want to upset my boss. In fact, he told me, he came out with a phrase, your listeners will love this. His phrase was, don't expect any special treatment. So I went, okay, I won't expect any special treatment. Here's my notice, I'm going to go. And I launched myself into an even bigger career, just after having active, because I wanted to prove him wrong, when actually I should have been taking time for me through my breast cancer. I should have been listening to what my body needed. And, that was probably my biggest lesson. And I know that I've learned that lesson to a certain extent, because, as you know, I had a major accident end of last year. And I have literally been, if I can't do it, I don't do it. I found myself sitting on that sofa more times than not, being waited on by my husband because I can't do it. And that's okay. And that's been my biggest lesson, is watching the difference from, my cancer 7 years ago to recovering from my accident.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could talk all day about this. I think, your story is so inspirational, Penny. And the way you've come through that, and how you've used HeartMath and everything else, it really does show. And I think what you said there is, that's okay. It is about identifying that we have a choice in how we deal with things, and it's okay to say no.
Yeah, completely okay to say no. And I think particularly as parents, we create a rod for our own back by feeling guilty because we tell them no, and we allow them a little bit more, but actually they need to understand that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to, and we live in this sort of fear of, oh, we'll just let them do it because it's okay. And actually sometimes that can cause, I feel, bigger problems for the next generation coming through, because they don't understand that no is okay.
Yeah, I think it's something that we're going to see more of as well, when you look at the effects of COVID and how that has impacted the younger generation. My son's 6, and the transition for him of going through the first year of school was huge, because he didn't get to make friends very easily. As a parent, I wasn't able to make friends with other parents. We were all in masks at the school gate. But for 16-year-olds and older children, I know you've got older children who've gone through that transition. Do you think, going into the workplace, that will affect them as well? Have you seen an effect?
Completely. I mean, my middle child is 20, cannot face work. Can't, because going through COVID for him was such a challenge, because he's also battling with his sexuality and understanding that I'm not a girl, I'm a boy. So had that transition stage there, but also the fact that was so isolated that couldn't, there was, sat in his bedroom, trying to do academic studies that he's not academic. And so he cannot get himself into the workplace. And I keep saying, that's okay, just take your time. But there is so much pressure on him to know what he wants to do and know who he is, that he's struggling with it. He's struggling with it. And also for my youngest, who's 17, she struggled with those. And then she outwardly is confident, but inwardly won't say boo till goes. I have to ask things for her, and I have to, encourage her to be. be things, and I'm always saying to her, she drives her nuts. I've got an oil for that.
Brilliant.
But it is a struggle for them, isn't it? And I mean, you know how passionate I am about the Gen Z generation. I really want to help them into the workplace, and they are struggling. They are really struggling, and it's causing ripples through the workplace. You'll know that in HR, you know, the gap between finding talent and nurturing that talent when you get it is really challenging for them. And they want nurturing, they want care, and they want this big pie in the sky dream that they have, and they just don't know how to get there.
Yeah, I think we're definitely seeing that, and from an employer's perspective as well, they don't know how to handle it. So what would you say kind of is a common myth within your field at the moment, or what you do in recruitment?
So in recruitment, I mean, it's always seen as a profit-making, sales-led, hard-hitting, you know, we're sitting making sales calls at 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're just bombarding that phone. And I have never done recruitment in that fashion. In fact, I used to call myself a bit of a square peg in a round hole, and because I've always understood the people, and for me it's relationships. And so I had one regional manager say to me, "Oh, you're like a slow burning penny." But my clients would never go anywhere because they know that I understand them, I know their needs, I know their wants, and that's me sort of stepping over that myth, really, of going, no, look, I'm not just after your business and I'm going to walk away. I've seen many recruitment consultants do that. But likewise, from the candidate point of view, I have seen so many recruitment consultants just treat their candidates like money. You know, here's a job, go off and get me my commission, done. You know, I've still got candidates. In fact, I was talking to one the other day who reached out to me on LinkedIn. 8 years ago, I interviewed him, and you know, he's a phenomenal lad, absolutely phenomenal. And he reached out to me the other day and said, "I can't believe where you are now." And you know, that's lovely, because for me, that is breaking the myth.
Absolutely, and that's why I really like what you do, because I have the same experience of recruiters wanting to just get their commissions. So yeah, I think it's really nice that you approach things in a different way.
Yeah, it's about the people. With the end of the day, particularly in today's market, where, you know, the challenges in recruitment, I don't want to just put a bum in a seat. I want to make sure that bum is the right bum to fit with the rest of the team, and make sure that that person's nurtured and looked after. It just doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, it's all about the employee experience, and you know, from my branding as well, it's employee happiness is key. So yeah, you're right. What do you think then that the world will look like in, say, 50 years' time?
I think I think we're on a pivotal moment at the moment. We can go one way, or we can go the other. And if we go one way, I think society will collapse. We're struggling. Youngsters are struggling. We've touched on it already. The younger generation that are going to come in underneath them is going to struggle even more, because their parents have struggled. So I would like us to go the other way, where we really embrace. I have this big vision of workplaces becoming well-being sanctuaries, and work is seen as something you really enjoy and something that you want to be in. And I think if we can pivot that way and create generations that are just harmonious, and it'll be a completely different for us. So that's where I'd like it to go in the next few years.
Yeah, I agree. I'm all for that vision. Yeah. What would you say then? Because I know you've been in business for a while now. So what would be your productivity hack if you could advise someone starting out or an entrepreneur?
So HeartMath mainly, because of everything is so good to just pivot mainly. Aroma Freedom it's not very well known, but Aroma Freedom literally takes limiting beliefs and dashes them. And there's a technique in Aroma Freedom called Aroma Reset, and it is literally 6 minutes. And in 6 minutes, You breathe in some essential oils, you follow a process, you change your mindset in that moment. And I incorporate it with HeartMath. So I'll do the HeartMath breathing, and then I do the Aroma Freedom practice. So it does take me a little bit longer than 6 minutes. But it means that I can literally focus. So, for instance, in my previous job, every April or every March, we'd have to do an annual rate increase, which would be sitting there in front of spreadsheets, and I'd sit for a whole week with those spreadsheets, and it would just drive me insane because I don't mind a bit of data, but it's data heavy because you're literally analysing everything. And I used Aroma Freedom in that last April, so the April before last, and I did it within a day or two, which would normally take me a week, because I kept completely making sure that I was still balanced, making sure that I was still focused on the result is this. And so that would be my technique.
Yeah, I love that. And how would people start with that?
So it's Aroma Freedom it's a blend of 3 oils. So it's the easiest blend is lavender, frankincense, and stress away. Make sure your oils are pure, and it's literally a drop of each on the palm of your hands, and you just breathe those oils in. So you just cut them in front of your face and breathe those oils in, and just feel into what's causing that problem at the moment. How are you feeling? What do you want to feel like? What's that inner voice saying to you, and how can you and it's just working through that process with those. And if you incorporate that with HeartMath, which is just you're breathing in and you're out, and you can literally change your mindset in an instant.
Yeah, and I guess that's recognizing that state change as well, to then be able to do that consistently. Yeah,
and just stay in that flow state of, because when you're in that flow state, as when you're happy, when you're in that flow state, productivity is a thing of the past. I've seen my team create huge amount of work in short spaces of time just because they are in that state of complete. But what you've got to be careful of is that flow state doesn't tip over the edge, because you can stay in flow state for too long and then you crash fast. So it is a practice, but if you practice it and you get used to it, you'll know when you're starting to twist, and then you can just take yourself out of it gently.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it is that recognition that you can't stay in it too long. I think it's like you think of time as a factor, and if you're really enjoying something, you're in that flow state, all of a sudden you think, oh, where's that time gone? Like 3 hours just passed and it feels like 5 minutes. So I think it can all of a sudden lead to burnout if you don't.
Yeah, because if you don't recognize it, you could stay there and just go, oh, I'm loving this, I'm just going to keep going, but your body's actually tired, you're fatigued in your body, and your mind's going a million miles an hour, going, yeah, but you've still got time, you can still do it. So it's just, I had a conversation with a lady the other day, and she's a mum, and she was juggling everything, and her business was taking a complete back step. And she said something about, oh, sun's shining and I just want to be outside. I said, well, go out for half an hour with a book, sit in the garden with a book for half an hour, forget everything else, and say to everybody, that's my time, and just go out. I said, watch the difference when you come back. She messaged me, she said, I did it, I couldn't believe the difference. And it is just simple as that.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Sometimes it's those really simple things that we just miss.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So I've just got a couple of last questions for you. One is there anything else that you wish I'd asked you? And if so, how would you have answered?
I think, no, I don't think there is anything that I wish you'd asked me, apart from how we're going to change the world, Laura, because you and I are so in sync.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll talk about that after.
I don't know whether we've got the answer for that just here yet, but I think you've asked lots of questions that are very important to me, and I don't think there's anything else that I would add to it.
Yeah, I think there's lots of top tips in there for the listeners as well, and certainly I'll be going to find out more about what you've talked about. The last question then is, we just ask if there's a book that you would recommend to our audience and why.
I absolutely love The Surrender Experiment. Have you read that one by Michael Singer?
No, I haven't. I'm definitely going to write that down as well.
So he writes about, he basically just wanted to be a hippie in the 70s, and he kept trying to go off and meditate, but things kept coming in his way. And so he decided that he would just say yes to everything. He would surrender. And he writes about his journey of this surrender. He became a millionaire because everything that came in his direction, he would go, okay, you're clearly sending it to me for a reason, so I'm going to say yes to it. You make it happen, he would say to the universe. And of course it did. And it's a lovely story about how he kept fighting and saying, don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. But actually, when he just allowed the universe to take control, he believed that there was a external force that led us on, and we were here for a purpose. And so that's why he decided that he would just surrender to everything. And I couldn't put it down.
Wow, that's definitely been added to my my book list. I love books, so yeah, that's amazing. So thank you so much for your time, Penny. Really enjoyed that chat. Lastly, just tell people how they can find out about you and what you do.
So I always hang out on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way to find me. So just Penelope Layzell on LinkedIn, or penelopelayzell.com is my website. So nice and straightforward. If it's the recruitment side of things, there's a link on my website that goes to Raise Recruitment, because that's a subsidiary of what I do. So they can reach me through that website.
Perfect, thank you. And we will include links on our Parentrepreneurs Club website and the podcast as well. So yeah, once again, thank you so much for your time today, Penny. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We rely heavily on word of mouth, so if you found value in this episode, please hit subscribe and share it with family and friends. If you'd like to find out a bit more about us, you can find us on our Facebook group, Parentrepreneurs Club, or alternatively on Instagram, Parentrepreneurs_Club. We hope you have a great week, and we look forward to talking to you next time.